I'm excited to be headed to San Diego on November 4th and 5th this year for the ERE Recruiting Innovation Summit. This event always brings together the best in talent acquisition, recruiting leaders, HR executives, HR tech, people that are really shaping where this industry is going. It's more than just a pitch fest. I mean, this is where actual learning comes in. They've been around for 30 years. It's a great event at San Diego in November. And you're going to have some excellent speakers, demonstrations. We have pin.com there. Joel Loudry will be there. You'll have the team from ERE there, Jim Stroud. These are people that have been shaping the industry this decade and really where it's going in terms of AI and the blend with AI and recruiters and all that good stuff. I went in April this year and it was a transformative experience. We had a great time with the Digital Recruiter booth and speaking and just people learning about automation and content and AI tools. It was just really cool event. So I'll be an official content partner representing Digital Recruiter. So we're going to be capturing videos, doing man on the street, interviewing the speakers, the sponsors, really getting a pulse on the action. So if you're in talent acquisition, if you're agency recruiter, this is the place to be on November 4th and 5th. Go meet your peers in person, learn from them. There's virtual tickets, there's in-person events. It's an awesome time. And so please enjoy our ERE podcast series so it gets you a glimpse of all the people that are going to be at ERE, and we'd love to see you there. All right, welcome back to another episode of Digital Recruiter Podcast for our special ERE series for the ERE event in San Diego, the Innovation Conference. It'll be November 4th and 5th. And today I'm joined by Jennifer Cotie Kangas, the founder and chief solutions architect at White Rock consulting firm that she founded. She partners with organizations on figuring out HR tech stacks and aligning business and talent strategies. But more importantly, and what she's going to be talking about at the event is AI and AI transformation and really aligning, building a modern and compliant AI hiring strategy. So I've been tripping up on that. And it's this really interesting conversation that she's going to have in terms of being legal and recruiting. And then her story is incredible. So we're going to dive into it. Jennifer, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Clark. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those that don't know, maybe kind of give a quick synopsis on kind of exactly what you do at White Rock, and then we'll kind of get into the talk that you're doing or the roundtable, I should say, at ERE.
Yeah, so at White Rock Road, I am a chief solution architect. So what I do is I come alongside of organizations. I help understand where they're trying to go. And sometimes that includes reverse engineering their HR tech strategy, whether that's
Yeah,
optimization or stabilization or acquiring new technology.
yeah,
I'm the person who really focuses on that how word versus the why and the what. So how do we put things together? And so really
yeah.
coming alongside of organizations and teaching them those program management skills and also including AI. So how do you start with AI? How do you begin with AI? And how do you create compliant solutions in order to bring some of these technologies in? Because with AI, it's not the same as all the other techs that we kind of have grown up to up until this point.
Super cool. And for someone that I have a small team, I'm on my own. The way I use AI is probably very different than corporations have to consider and look at it. So I feel like I'm going to learn a lot in this conversation because I'm pretty naive to kind of how it works in the kind of the corporation setting. Like you mentioned, there's some differences with maybe some of the other technology. I don't know if like kind of in layman terms, you can give us like some examples that people are seeing out in the real world in the corporate world that's kind of been affected because it's kind of just been thrown on us. I feel like the last couple of years. Like, what does that like look like, in day to day?
Yeah, so it's definitely, I mean, being thrown at us is something that's definitely what I'm seeing out there in the world. A
Yeah,
lot of organizations like the C-suite is mandating AI, and like HR is like, how do I get on board with this? But like I said
yeah,
before, this is a little different because in order for
yeah,
AI to really be effective, you have to have the right foundation. And that foundation is really, really important to make sure that you've got a cohesive data strategy. And so data in our world, in the HR side, we've got lots of it available, but a lot of the times it's not structured properly in order to be able to do the things that we want to do with AI. So a lot of the work that I do with organizations is almost like step zero. It's getting all of those different pieces in place so that we can apply AI on top of it to do the things that we want to do. But unlike some of the other skills that we acquire in the HR world, um, AI is different because it's not something that you learn once. The pace of change is so dramatically fast and evolving constantly that AI is really a mindset that you have to adopt. And you have to be constantly looking at like, here's how to use it, which is a little different than how people have used it before. And now I'm monologuing, so I'm gonna stop there and let you ask another question. So
I love it. I love it. I know I have so many things I want to ask because you're obviously completely correct with how it changes. And, we create one custom GPT at our company and then it works differently a week later, but then it's worse. And then we make it way better. And then it's like 10 times better than what we had before. And it's like the ebb and flow. It almost kind of actually reminds you of sales in a way where sales is there's a process, but the results are always different and it changes week to week. And you just got to kind of trust the process. And there's obviously a lot different legalities in sales, but it's just like you never know what tomorrow could bring. So I don't know if what your mindset is. When I'm thinking about it, it's almost like I wonder if having a sales mindset around AI of like you never know what tomorrow could bring is maybe how I think about it. But when you mean kind of changing your mindset around AI, like what should people be thinking of, or how should they be viewing it?
yeah, so much like with a lot of other things in the HR and the talent acquisition world or the recruiting world, we tend to have
Mhm.
a design bias for how we're going to use technology and how we're going to solve problems. And so what I mean by that is how we've done things historically can sometimes get in our own way where we're not even looking at like, hey, here's how I could be doing this differently. So I do a lot of
Mhm.
speaking to large scale organizations on AI. And one of the things that I found recently is some of these companies are building really, really cool AI tools, but the leaders aren't using them. And part of the reason that they're not using them is because the way that they've always done things still works today, right? So, like in that situation, it takes a different mindset. It's not just like, does the same way that I have today work? It's, is there a different, better way? And so we have to kind of check that design bias of how we've solved problems historically, also of where we've deployed AI historically, right? Like, so there's like automation, there's conversational AI, there's so many different types of AI. And a lot of the times when we're having conversations about AI, it's about generative AI. But even with generative AI, like as HR organizations and as recruiting organizations, we've we've kind of swung the pendulum where what I mean by that is like we've tried to be a lot more bite sized in the communications that we're having and describing different things. But the truth is, like if you're using generative AI or agentic AI, you actually have to flip the pendulum the other way. You have to be really, really robust and really detailed because you need the AI to have all the different parameters that you're looking for. So there's areas where we're having to shift the how of how we've historically done them.
Gotcha. So if I'm a company, right, and we're like, or I'm an HR leader and I've been mandated, okay, go use AI, or we have this tool, go use it. Like, what are the signs that's like I might need help and I might need to reach out to someone like Jennifer to get help? Like, what are some of the questions or obstacles like HR leaders are facing day to day? It's like, hey, we need someone to come in and help us, just like guide us through this process.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the times where I'm getting called in, there's something broken with existing tech, or they're looking at bringing on some sort of AI technology, and the business case aspect of that is falling short. And so a lot of with AI is like you've got to be able to sell it internally and make the business case for it. But when we, especially for like SEC regulated companies, you're held to certain protections that you have to be compliant on, right? And so when you go to IT and you're like, hey, I want to use AI. Oh, by the way, we can't get access to the model that we're using because it's proprietary and all these different things. Like you've got to pivot your business case. And so I'm typically pulled in on those things. But I think another thing that people will often pick up the phone and call me about is specifically how and where you use AI. And so I always say AI should follow the pain. And so being able to be really kind of introspective and look at what you're doing today. Where are you spending a lot of time? Where are you spending a lot of energy? where are things getting stuck. When you can get down to the task level of here's how we're doing things today, then you overlay the technology that you're using for that, then you overlay the pain. That pain kind of creates a heat map of here are some places where it might make sense to reverse engineer leveraging AI. And so again, that's like a systematic process. But
Yeah.
that's another thing that people often will give me a call. I apologize. I'm gonna mute my phone there.
Yeah, no, I like the AI follows the pain. I think that's a simple, which is simple is the best way to explain things. Way to look at it and to kind of to 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 think about it. I think about the way we use it, and it's interesting. I don't really think about this, but like, not what I learned with AI is it's not going to solve every pain, right? I kind of test it on a few different ones and figure out, okay, what is the most the one that makes the most sense that it could solve right now, and then other ones might need like a little work. For example, let's say working for messaging, it's not going to get apples to apples exactly what I want messaging, but maybe content strategy or even a post, it can be pretty close, or even just doing market research on a client, it's excellent for, right? Or building sourcing booleans, it's like, oh, I could use this right away and I could feel like a boolean expert.
Yeah.
In terms of like, there's kind of a couple things there. Is that kind of how you see it a little bit as well? Is that kind of like the way to think about, follow the pain?
Yeah, I think definitely. It's just it takes like a different lens, like where it's really like you
Yeah,
have to look at, and I recommend people like will carry a notebook with them like during your day and like
yeah,
write down from a task level like what are you spending time on, and if there's something that you're
yeah,
spending more than 3 minutes on, document it, right? But at the end of the week, if you're doing that pretty consistently, at the end of the week you're going to
yeah,
have a list. And then if you look at that list and you highlight the things that super, super drain you, then you've got a little bit more like specifics on here's where it might work for me. But the thing to remember with AI, right, Clark, is it's meant to augment, right? But in order for
yeah,
it to augment you and for it to augment me, it's got to augment different places. And so being able to be introspective and look at where those like pockets might be, it might look different for you and I. And so that's another thing that we have to remember when we're deploying AI for organizations is just because it's okay for this to augment for me, does it even make sense to augment for them? So there's an aspect of this where we've got to do, um, our persona mapping to understand who are our different users. Do they have these pains? Because much like other things, we don't want to use our gut instinct and deploy AI where we think it should be used. You really want to take that more scientific method approach and be able to unpack and validate that some of these areas really do make sense. And then pilot, right? So it's like being able to start, test, iterate, because to your point, like sometimes the models change too. And so this isn't something that you check a box and you just deploy, but it's also going to learn. So even like in the content strategy piece, like I've got some domain specific large language models. So my little GPTs that I've built that now know my tone of voice so incredibly well and my pacing and different things like that, where I can just give a very, very quick prompt, which prompting is how we talk to AI, or generative AI specifically, and it'll have me 95% of the way like that, which is like, it's a heck of a lot easier than having to
yeah.
like spin your wheels.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have similar, and it's incredible. I know my wife handles our operation. She's taken all my newsletters, all my content, kind of done the same thing, and it's helpful. Like, it's helpful to see, and then I also kind of find myself wanting to just like write out posts and just like I just like write it out myself, and it's like, well, I don't want to like rely on it or only use it or anything else. I still want to kind of capture that authenticity, and I think that's been an interesting thing for me. It's just like I see it, but I don't want to, there's certain things, especially when it's public facing, that I don't want to lose like the soul
Your
of
voice.
me writing it
Yeah.
and my voice and all that. And it can capture it really well, but I know that there's still something missing in it that just comes from just the me writing it out type piece. So I don't know if you face or interact that or deal with that as well, or just think about that.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. I mean, there are certain things to your point, like we were saying before, where you're testing, you're iterating, like you're seeing if this works. Like I've definitely done for content. I'm similar to you, where I found that like I like my content to have my voice. And so I will
uh,
write out the content and then say, acting as a content coach, what are some different areas where I could improve on this content? And it will give
Great
me
prompt.
more like specifics on where to be able to improve on that. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize that AI can be really helpful with is actually with process in the HR space. So, and all of this that I'm saying is with a caveat that you should be using a paid version typically because it's got a moat around it and you shouldn't do anything that's against your company's policy. So please keep that in mind too. But it actually was a really fascinating. I was at HR Tech a couple of weeks ago. One of the most fascinating statistics that I heard was that it was like 81% of organizations are bringing their own AI to work. So like they're bringing their own GPT or something like that. But it was like 61% of those people are using free versions, which for those of you who don't know, like free versions like you're essentially training the model yourself and like there's no protections on your data. And so what you're giving out there becomes like it becomes public, right? And so when you have a paid version of some of these technologies, you're essentially putting a moat around it. And so like with the paid versions, I super recommend you can actually give it your process of like, hey, here's step by step how I do recruiting, or here's my HR tech stack, right? What are some different ways that I could optimize for X? And it will actually, you can ask it to act as a coach too, or as a consultant from a big four firm, or as an innovation expert, or as somebody who's a speaker at ERE, right? And it will actually give you insights on how to improve or like areas that you could be able to elevate your process too. So not just content, but the process side is really important as well.
Love the process side for it, and I think that's such a good note on the freebie version, which is, I guess I've seen that. I haven't really thought about it because I just got a paid one immediately. Because when you do what we do, it's like, why wouldn't you spend $20 a month on it? But it is that it's a very good point. So I'm glad you made it. Well, I want to ask about your session at ERE. It's the first one on day 2, so make sure get your coffee, get your breakfast, and either be there in person. Why wouldn't you be in sunny San Diego in the first week of November, especially if you're someone like me in Ohio? So
Minnesota
you
here.
might as well be
So
there. In Minnesota,
100%.
same thing.
We
You're
will
gonna have
be enjoying the warm in La Jolla.
yeah,
Like, absolutely. You'll see us in shorts. Everybody else will be like, in
yeah,
parkas, but we're going to be like the ones in shorts
yeah.
and flip flops. It'll be really easy to find us. So,
It's exactly it. Bust out some 5 inch inseam shorts. I'll be there trying to get my tan going into winter. So,
absolutely.
and if you can't do that, show up virtually. But again, the one of the first talks on day 2 is going to be building a modern and compliant AI hiring strategy. What was the inspiration? There's a lot of things. Your wealth of knowledge. There's a lot of things you can talk about. What made you choose this one?
Yeah, so this is actually a really interesting one, and it was an evolution with Josh. So when Josh first reached out to me, the idea was I was going to actually interview a panel of leaders who were using AI and talking about like how their like AI strategy and how they built it. And then we were in a call at one point, and I said, you know, here's the problem that I'm struggling with. There are certain things about this narrative, like specifically about using AI in organizations and establishing strategies that aren't currently being talked about, but are absolutely critical to get this stuff right. And Josh said, tell me more. And so, and for those of you who don't know, Joshua Jones is an incredible leader at ERE, and he is the one who's kind of behind all of the different programming here. And he said, tell me more. And so I explained to it more. And so he ended up actually shifting and brought in, he's like, well, now I'm going to have you interview this incredible legal mind, Danielle Ox, who's this awesome AI attorney. And you guys can have this dynamic conversation. And then he came back to me and he said, actually, we really want your voice to be a stronger one, a part of it, not just asking questions, but you've got a lot of domain specific experience. So we're going to have Brian Fink, who I believe you know as well, interview both you and Danielle. So that's where we are today. So the idea behind this is really to be able to look at where are those big rocks or those things that we've seen, Danielle and I, in our experience, with where AI has maybe gone wrong or where people have had missteps. And then be able to share like here's how you actually do it the right way, but really making sure that we're isolating some of those narratives that haven't been talked about, specifically about governance, building relationships across the aisle, because with AI, this is not just like a you versus me. This has to be an us versus the problem to get it right. And you should be really be working with internal counsel, external counsel, legal, like IT, all sorts of different places. And so I'm monologuing again, but I'm really excited about this conversation. I think it's going to be a really good one for anyone who's wondering what next with AI. And if you're in that mode of building your tool belt when it comes to AI, like this is going to be a really great session where you can sharpen those skills. And these are the skills that you want to always keep sharp too, because like I said before, AI is constantly evolving, but it's a skill. And so it's a skill that if it's not there or if it's not very sharp, find sessions like this one and we'll help tool you for success.
Well, there's so many good things there. And when I went in April and I was talking to HRTA leaders, why are you here? What are you hoping to learn? It's like AI, and I'm scared of it. I don't know what it means, right? And I think the end of the theme of the April was just like, okay, it's here to stay. Learn about it, not just from recruiting, right, but just soak it all in and be the one in your organization that understands AI, knows how to navigate it from an HRTA perspective. And it's clear the evolution. I'm just, when you were talking, I was like, a couple of things came to mind. I'm so impressed with, I think, the way Josh puts together sessions and the way he thinks about events and sessions, having now worked with him on, I don't plan any of the events, but just being part of kind of the other side, the other side of the curtain on ERE, two events. How he thinks about putting sessions together is always very interesting, and he's very thoughtful and intentional about it. And I've
He's
just realized, like, oh,
so
that's an actual skill,
thoughtful and
uh,
intentional. And it's
which is pretty cool.
it
Yeah.
really is, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but like I think this is
No.
such a critical
Yeah.
differentiator of ERE versus other conferences. So a lot of
Yeah.
other conferences, um, candidly, people are paying to be on stage, and so like the narratives that you get are whatever the vendor wants or whatever the vendor needs or whatever. Erie's dramatically different, y'all. Like they look at what are the messages, what are the narratives that are needed in order to get this right, and then they are programming to make sure that those narratives are included. Now, like the other thing, when you're on the forward edge of innovation, you have to be able to find the people who are there with you to learn from them. And that's really what this is. You've got some of the brightest, biggest brains that are in this space who are going to share their stories and their hows that you can learn from. Like that's critical if again you want to get this stuff right. And so super super excited about this. And yeah, there is fear with AI. There should be fear. I know Clark, you know this a little bit part about my story, but one of my benefits that I had is in 2020 I fell and hit my head and I lost all of my memory. So who I was, who my kids were, how the world worked, like all of it was wiped out, including how we use and leverage AI in our organizations. And so without that design bias and honestly without the fear of, hey, AI is going to take over your job or AI killer robots are going to come up, like when you haven't been conditioned with that fear, it changes how you approach the technology differently. And so it's been a unexpected benefit to massive memory loss is losing again that design bias for how we solve problems, especially when it comes to AI in this space. So you'll hear a little bit more about that as well during the session, I'm sure. But ultimately, this is definitely one that you want to have on your radar. If you're not able to join us in person, um, hopefully you can join us online, but really make sure these are the narratives that you want to be intentional of making sure that are part of your like learning experience. And if you're having a hard time making the business case to your leadership, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to save or to share some tips and tricks on making the business case for learning as well, because it's an important one, and I hope that I can see you guys there.
There's a lot. We don't have much time, and it feels like we buried the lead because I was about to, lead into it, and you went into it. So I'm like, all right, this is not fair because it's like but I'll first of all go to the event, meet Jennifer, so you could find out more about the story because I think just the perspective, the challenges you're having to face. I mean, your focus is this decade probably been a lot different than a lot of different people, right? When you are that affected by it, I guess I'll ask one. What's something in your life or perspective that you've had to deal with since this accident that you've seen the rest of there's the chaos, we'll put it that way, in the world, which has always kind of been there. But like, what's a perspective or takeaway, not just AI, but that you've kind of developed to kind of thinking or sharing with people that's been kind of a defining part of maybe your experience so since your accident?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think for me, one of my big aha moments is it's not about the answers, it's about the questions. So questions are your
Yeah,
pickaxe. They help you unpack what you're actually dealing with in terms of problems. And if you ask the
yeah,
right sharp questions, that's where you really get stories to come forward. And so that's an important thing when we're going to build, when we're going to, when we're in recruiting, when like there's so many aspects where questions are absolutely critical, but making sure we're asking the right types of questions is really important, not yes or no questions. Again, what are those right sharp questions that help the story kind of come forward? And I think I've also found that more so than other areas I've experienced, we tend to have a design bias for how we solve problems with recruiting. So that might look like, hey, I can't get candidates on Indeed, or I can't get them on LinkedIn. But like how we've done it before can sometimes hold us back. And so there are some cool different new things that are coming out that actually are working. And when you look at the data, they've got the conversions. I guess the data is, wow, this is good. I'm getting way too long here. But data is an important thing too, which I think I don't see as much of a heavy reliance on. It's like we tend to run towards our gut instincts instead of like those clear data insights. And so I think I think I'm more so than most because I couldn't rely on my memory because I didn't have it anymore, right? Like I really dug into what the data was showing me and trying to understand more. So I'm here monologuing again,
I love
but
it.
yeah.
I love it. One, I don't know. It's all fascinating. I'm taking it. I'm just like been processing what the experience would be like with kids and family and work and everything else. It's. Well, I'm asking you more when we meet up at ERE. We'll put it that way. We'll have to
But
record live again at
totally
ERE. Well,
fine.
that's what I love.
Totally fine.
Yeah, I got my own craziness that I know we just met today, but we'll have a good back and forth. I promise. What's one thing you're excited about beyond obviously talking to me at ERE? What's the one thing you're looking forward to at the event beyond your discussion and moderation and everything else, and the weather, of course?
Yeah, so I mean, the best part about being a speaker at ERE is we get a ticket to being able to like attend like ERE, and I am somebody who's been on a lot of stages. I've spoken a lot. Like I've been able to do really cool things. But when it comes to like being able to sharpen my own tools, in my professional tool belt, this is the one that gets me really excited because it has the brightest, biggest brains that are in our space that are again talking about their how, which is really exciting to me. So I think I'm most looking forward to putting on that learner kind of mindset and just soaking it all in. So you will see me furiously taking notes. I've got my Cornell note taking system. Like I will be fiercely taking notes all week. But it's such a great place to learn. And these are the right people to learn from because the stories, the journeys they've been on, they're truly incredible. And
Yeah.
again, we should be really focused on like how do we build these things? How do we go about some of these different new things in our world? And these are the people to learn from. So
I agree. I think great answer. It's fun to dive in, participate, and and you get out what you put into it. So
it's true.
if it's, I mean, it really is, and I've built some great relationships from the first conference. I'm excited to build even more from this one. I'm just so happy to be going back and doing things in person. And it's not a COVID excuse. It's more of a moved to Ohio right before COVID, got found my wife, got married, how kids, all that stuff, and it's just like I built the business. I was like, well, I gotta go meet people in person, and so I've been doing a lot more of it this year, and it's so fun, it's so rewarding. Yes, remote can make things simpler and more efficient and all that, but there is something to be said, and I know I'm beating the dead horse here, which is meeting people in person.
It's
And where else to do it
such a
better
great
than
place.
San Diego?
It's such a great
Yeah.
place to meet people. And if you're hesitant about going because you don't know anybody there, I'm telling you, the other thing about like the speakers who are on stage, almost all of us are connectors and we're people who are welcoming, individuals in. And so if there's somebody who's on the outskirts who like doesn't have friends or like a space or connections, like we're going to help try to integrate that too. And that's one of the differentiators with ERE is like their programming is really about being able to build and foster communities. So if you are newer to the space or maybe you don't have as many friends in the TA world, this is a really good one to be able to establish and build on relationships too. So I'd highly recommend it. Um, and if you end up coming and you need somebody to go out to dinner with or something like that, like also just flag us over because it's all about, building and fostering those relationships. And we've all been there before too, where we were the newbies at one point. So
Yeah. Find Jenny, or as your friends call you in the HRTA space, JCK. I did
JCK.
forget to mention
Yeah.
that in the beginning. Or come find me. But you know who you really should find is the moderator of your session, Brian Fink,
Oh,
who might be the people person of people persons.
yeah.
And so if when in doubt, go find out. But he's gonna. He's actually not going to be mad at me for saying that.
No,
That's how you know he's the right person.
he's a
Uh,
yes human being.
yeah,
Yes. Like
yeah,
he's
exactly. So he's fantastic, and he's an absolute genius as well. So, but a better person. So, JCK, that's what I'm going with for going forward. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your radical transparency, sharing a little bit of your story. It's a pleasure to talk to you and meet you, and I can't wait to meet you in person in San Diego.
absolutely. It was so great to meet you, Clark. I hope you and the kids have a great night, and I look forward to seeing you in November.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right, y'all. Well, you know what to do. Subscribe, follow, give this some love if you got some value out of it. And also, more importantly, get your ticket to ERE in San Diego in November. It's going to be fantastic. The Recruiting Innovation Conference. It's always a great time. There's a ton of knowledge there. And come hang out with us. Until next time, y'all. Happy hunting.